Well, hello everybody. How are you doing today? I am super excited to be rolling again. Have a new microphone, so hoping that this sound is phenomenal for everyone. Looking forward to feedback as well. You can let me know if it works. This is all about process improvement, right? Continuing to look for ways that we can share best practices, learn with each other, and moving into our next level of the certifications. So this is part of our BPM certification level 3. If you have participated in level 1 and 2, then you know that those two gave some broad context for the concept of BPM, or business process management, continuous improvement, and how to bring that into our organizations, and also how to leverage it in terms of affecting and creating incredibly empowered and engaged cultures, right? Because that's what a lot of this is about for us, is how do we create organizations that are passionate around continuous improvement, and organizations that have a highly engaged workforce and team members that are actively involved in the world of continuous improvement, right? So we're going to move into the next level, level 3. Now, in this particular arena, and this will be about a 5 or 6 week series here, so a shorter component in comparison, obviously, to the other ones. But in this one, what we want to be focused on is what are the types of things that we can do that allow us to actually establish the structure that's necessary for a successful process improvement environment and for a successful culture around engagement and accountability. Right? So if you're coming at this from a human resources perspective, or you're coming at it from an operational or an IT perspective, I think all of those different professional angles really will benefit from having a deep understanding of what we mean by the PIO, or the Process Improvement Organization. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at what this session is going to cover, and then we'll start diving in, okay? All right, so here we go. So this particular segment, you can think of it really as acting as a guideline and a companion for professionals just like you as you look to build out a PI function within your organization, or a culture of continuous improvement. So whether your process improvement function is a centralized function, or it's a key theme for your organization that ultimately is being driven through the organization by leadership, or maybe it's being championed by another functional area such as human resources or IT, for example, or even operations. If it's being championed by any one of those, or it stands as its own independent functional area, we're going to go through what the key components are. So this segment will act as a guideline and a companion for you to reference back to as well. All right. So what we're going to do in kicking off this series, we're going to explore the inner workings of a PIO. So we'll treat it as if it is a standalone organization. What I want you to take away from this, though, is the components that you can translate into, or the practices that you can translate into the operational aspects of your own function. So quite honestly, these principles around process improvement can help drive the way that you operate as an HR function, or how you operate as an IT organization or a finance organization. Truly can drive the way that you affect the culture throughout your entire company. So we're going to explore from that standpoint the workings, the inner workings of a PIO, what it is, why have it, and what are the benefits that we get as an organization. So we're going to do that throughout this series. Now, also from this standpoint, remember that all of this lives in a broader context, because what we're ultimately out to do is to create unstoppable engagement, right? We want people caring about continuous improvement. We want them passionate about it. In fact, it has been shown time and time again through the research and through our own practical experience and knowledge, it has been shown that when we dedicate an organization, dedicate part of our mission to continuous improvement, man, people just get fired up and they're passionate about the work that they're doing. They know it makes a difference and it continues to evolve. It continues to grow. And that really nurtures people. And that's what drives engagement, right? So from that standpoint, we're going after it. This is going to give you an up close look at what a charter is for the PIO. So today we're going to do a little overarch. What is a process improvement organization? Then we're going to dive right in, okay? So we're going to move from theory to mastery very quickly and a couple of practice elements along the way. All right, so here's what we're going for. We are going to use our regular discussion path that you've become accustomed to. That is our SNAP webinar structure. So our SNAP structure, again, we've got a little brief welcome, as I just shared with you. We're going to dive right in to what is a PI organization and why have one. Then we're going to do some more exploration around some of the BPM best practice tips and the cultural aspects of this. So we're going to do a dive into the charter, the promises that need to be contained in that charter, and how you really sustain success in this world. And you can kind of get the sense, perhaps from my own passion around this, that it does become self-sustaining. It feels really good when we're continuing to grow, continuing to change, continuing to evolve, and we get more ideas and we continue to evolve. It feels really good in that space. It energizes, and so it becomes self-fulfilling as well. We look for more opportunities to grow and to evolve, right? So that's the engine. That's what we're going after, okay? So we're going to do a dive into that. And then for those of you who are already clients with us and leveraging ProMap, I'm going to do a little bit of a review of ProMap and where all of this fills in, how we leverage that tool set. If it's an area that you're interested in exploring further, please, please, please give me a quick call. Promise no selling at all. Just want to expose you to it, give you a sense of what you should be looking for with any platform that you choose to work with in this space. If you are already a ProMap client, outstanding. We're going to share some of the pillars, the core pillars that are really the baseline of design, that are designed around creating this environment and sustaining your process improvement organization and your organization is committed to continuous improvement. So we're going to do a deep dive in there, and then of course open forum for questions in next week's topic. All right, so let's rock and roll because time is of the essence for us, right? All right, so here we go. First of all, we want to start out with this idea of what is a process improvement organization. All right, so just starting there. One of the things that I want you to take away is that the PIO really is the core component. It is a core component of any company's quality system. So if your organization says that it is committed to quality and says that it is committed to continuous improvement, then you want to be looking for the evidence of a PIO. Again, either an established team, it might show up as a PMO, for example, or it might be embedded inside of another part of your organization, like HR, for example, is responsible for championing process management, process improvement, or the IT organization is responsible for championing process improvement and even looking for automation opportunities. And we're starting to see more and more HR organizations and finance organizations pick up this banner around automation as well and looking for ways to really streamline and scale. So if you are hearing the words, we are committed to quality, we are committed to our customer success, we are committed to continuous improvement, then look for evidence of this in the PIO. All right. Now, one of the reasons that we need to make sure that that exists, and if you don't see it existing today, it is a powerful and fun conversation to get into. And I say fun, you know, a little bit with that tongue in cheek, because it is a change component. There is change management threaded throughout this, and we'll talk about that more in the upcoming weeks. But what we want to do is we want to say, look, the primary purpose of the PIO is to increase efficiency and agility. All right. So we want to make sure that if we're saying this is important to us, that we're putting some resource, goals, alignment, time, we're putting an element of that towards this process improvement, right? So if you create an organization along those lines, part of its purpose is to increase efficiency and agility and the quality of its products and services. Now, a few critical points I want you to take away from this. First of all, it is prudent in this space. It truly is prudent for an organization to follow a disciplined approach. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're methodical in the way that we approach our process improvements. Okay, and in that is buried a myth, and I want you to fully get this. A process discipline will slow us down. That is a myth, an absolute myth. If you think about in your own life and the things that you do, aren't you always looking for ways to do things a little more efficiently, a little more effectively? You know, if you have children, for example, you probably have a bedtime preparation sequence, for example, that you go through, right? And if you go through that sequence consistently, then you know 80% of the time that it'll be a happy bedtime, everyone's tucked in, they sleep well, stories are read, baths are taken, and we're good to go. And then if you deviate from that, then all heck breaks loose, potentially, right? Okay. Now, for you, those of you that are not parents, myself included, there may also be other things that you just naturally do to look for ways to streamline. So in that is the truth that a process discipline actually allows us to become more effective and efficient, freeing up time to be able to attend to those surprises that might pop up. Okay, and also giving us the ability to be more agile and responsive. And isn't that what we want? Okay, so I want you to take away that it is a myth that a process discipline slows us down. All right, and you will, of course, hear that myth. And so part of your role is to help debunk that and use stories from real life. Yeah, like the example I just gave in the bedtime preparations. Okay. Also, a few key notes, and when I get through these, then I encourage you to go ahead and take a snapshot of the screen. And of course, you know, we'll have all of this accessible as well as part of our ongoing support. So a few key notes in here as we're thinking about a PIO. So first of all, the PIO is a service-driven organization. And sometimes that throws people because they often think that it's a more of a, what's the word that I'm looking for here? Controlling organization, you know, and again, that links back to the myth, quite honestly. But in fact, a PIO is a service-driven organization, and it directly affects the culture of your company. Done well, this will be one of the things that will shift your company culture faster than most anything else, and will bring your culture around to one where people are engaged. They're excited about it. There's opportunity for improvement in here, and people are excited to contribute to it. So there's a great amount of communication and change management that goes in here. And so, you know, we want our PIO to be well versed in that space, or absolutely to be a strong partner with our human resources organizations and with our leadership. So it is the responsibility of the PI to provide oversight and to ensure that all the activities are aligned. So any process improvement activity, or the majority of process improvement activity, will likely be at least on the radar of the PIO. Now, whether the PIO resources or teams are actually doing the process improvement, that's going to be an open topic for our conversation, because remember, one of our prior conversations, we talked about the fact that people own what they help to create. So with that being the case, we want to make sure that we're taking an approach around continuous improvement, process improvement, where people are engaged, they're involved, they're participating, they're contributing, and all the way from the spot of actually contributing and documenting what is, and then looking for and spotting, they will on their own, trust me, spotting those opportunities, okay? So it can be said that one of the fastest ways to bring around those characteristics that we want in our cultures around accountability, ownership, engagement, responsiveness, agility, those much sought after characteristics. Those pieces, one of the fastest ways to do that is actually to introduce and embrace a PIO charter. Bring that onto your team, bring that into your organization. I'm happy to talk with you further about how to go about doing that. I've helped multiple companies in this area, and absolutely thrilled at what they're creating, and honored and grateful for what I've had the opportunity to be able to create and to participate in transforming for those companies. So I am absolutely available to you to talk further and kind of explore what you want to get out of this. Okay, so the next piece is, how do you know you're there, right? So first of all, successful teams adapt the workflow. Weak teams gripe about how difficult the process is, and it's just an excuse, right? So what you're aiming to do is to actually design and empower a team that is adapting their workflow to what's needed, okay? They have a sense of ownership, and they have a sense that they can make a difference. Okay, so that's what we're out to create. I think this Socrates quote just hits it right on. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy, not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Incredibly powerful. Grab another screenshot of this one, put it up on your wall, keep this in front of you, and these should be empowering words for you as you're getting your teams motivated and really involved in this space. All right, so let's dive into, this is the kind of organization that we're creating, right? Now, this is pretty technical. I do love this illustration, though, from Pedro Rebeldo. From this space here, what we're looking at, from a very tactical standpoint, is at the heart, we're creating a business process management program, right? And that program has a direct effect on the culture. It helps us measure the workforce, the performance, all of the things that we covered in our prior series. It has a full structure to it. And much of what we focus on is leveraging tools such as Lean, Six Sigma, theory of constraints. So leveraging these kinds of quantifiable tools, if you will. Okay, so most definitely in the space of process management, process improvement, and continuous improvement, there is a strong element and need to be very methodical. Again, this goes back to having the disciplined approach that we utilize. Now, is it necessary to be Lean, Six Sigma, or Theory of Constraints, TOC certified? Is all of that necessary? No. Really, it's not. In fact, those things and the belief that you needed to be certified in those areas may have actually stopped or caused hesitation for a lot of organizations and a lot of professionals like you from even exploring this area. So if you have these tools, if you have these techniques, great. Okay, and there are many others, and we'll spend some time in our next sessions going through that. But for now, all that we want to just keep in front of us is that the bottom line, when we model out our processes, so we map out, very simply, map out what are we doing, and the tool set, as you know, that I'm passionate around, the tool set of ProMap makes it incredibly, ridiculously easy, in fact, to be able to map out the current processes. In fact, puts it in such a way that we can onboard team members in the way that things are written and how easily accessible it is. So our first step is modeling. Our next step is to simply analyze. And honestly, when you start seeing your processes mapped out, boom, those opportunities start to come out as well. And you start to ask the question, why do we do things the way that we do things, right? Simple questions, and they're great. A lot comes along, gets drug along by legacy, right? So now with that in place, we have a foundation to have a meaningful conversation. Then we can get into simulation, execution of a new approach, and then monitoring how it successfully changes things. Okay, so just keeping in mind kind of ultimately this is where we're headed, right? But now the question is we're bringing in this idea of a PIO, okay? Now what we want to do is say, all right, we know where we're headed. Where do we go next? Okay, so let's dive into what the core elements are for an effective PIO. And this will be our framework that we cover over the next few weeks. Okay, so your PIO, again, if it's a standalone organization or it's a charter that's embraced and designated for one of your functional areas, and again, I usually see it in, and I love it being a part of HR or a part of IT. So the core elements of an effective PIO are what follows. So first of all, the charter. So having the charter in place, that is a key element. It answers this question: what are the primary objectives and what is the mandate within the company? So how does this function of the PIO, how does it fit within the whole organization, right? Just like we would with any other functional area. What is its charter? What is its mandate? Okay, what is its influence point? Okay, so that's our first piece, is the charter. We're going to do a dive into this piece as part of our Snap webinar today. We're going to do a dive into the charter component. The next pieces that we're then going to cover next week and the following weeks will be process improvement services. So these are core elements of an effective PIO. So what services does the PIO provide? What do they do centrally? What do they do decentralized? Do they serve as a education arm for your organization where they are teaching others also how to map and how to assess and how to qualify processes and process improvements, how to identify opportunities, that low-hanging fruit, if you will, around automation, workflow automation, for example. So what are the estimated timelines within those services? How does it affect the culture of the company? All right, so that's what we're going to do a deep dive into next week. The following week, we're going to go into the third core element, and that's around roles and responsibilities. So the third core element, this answers the question, what are the fundamental roles that make up a PIO? And again, I'm going to invite you in that session to be thinking about, is this a standalone organization, like a PMO, for example, or is this embedded into the roles and responsibilities for another functional area? Okay, so we're going to do a dive week after next into roles and responsibilities. The fourth core element is around the process improvement governance structure. We talked a bit about this several weeks ago in one of our prior sessions, right? How are process improvement projects governed? What roles does the POI play in the process? Okay, so we're going to revisit governance. Now we're going to do it from the perspective of, we actually have a function responsible for it. So we're going to go beyond theory of governance structures, and we're going to go into accountability and ownership. All right, I'm excited about that area as well. And the fifth and final core element of an effective PIO looks at the department controls. So in this case, we're looking at what controls are in place to ensure that consistent delivery experience. So every time somebody gets involved, a department gets involved, an employee gets involved in a process improvement opportunity, okay, what controls are in place to make sure it's consistent? Just as we're governing the consistency of how we manage our processes, we also want to be looking for what are the controls that are in place to ensure that we get a consistent delivery experience for process improvement and for the culture stakeholders as well, right? So again, to consistently build and sustain a culture of engagement, we need to consistently show up. All right, so those are the core elements. Now let's do a dive into the charter of a PIO. All right, so this is where it all starts. The charter of a PIO, if we think about it, the charter is designed to answer these questions, right? Or this primary question. What are the primary objectives for the PIO? And what is its mandate within the company? Okay, so I'm going to walk through these, and again, this is another slide I'll encourage you to grab a screenshot of, and then one to have handy as you're just thinking about what you want to bring on for your team, and also kind of for your own professional development as well, so you can feel comfortable in speaking to this space. So first of all, the focus is around stewardship, activities to eliminate waste, customer value, and engagement and accountability. Okay, so this is the focus of the PIO, all right? This is where it all starts. And also keeping in mind the long-term game, that a PIO truly is dedicated to sustaining enterprise operations. So in many respects, the PIO has an overarching mandate to help ensure the long-term sustainability and viability of the organization, of the enterprise, just as much as finance does, HR does, IT does. So even from that standpoint, but in many respects, the PIO has a much broader license, if you will, because by definition, our business processes span across all functional areas, right? When we think about our end-to-end processes. So this is a very powerful element in recognizing that by virtue of this primary mandate within the organization, by that very virtue, the PIO absolutely affects the entire culture. How cool is that? Okay, so this is one of those spots where if you're passionate around culture, you're absolutely in the right spot as well to be now talking about business processes. This is where it comes together. Okay, so from this standpoint, we know that the PIO, its charter, it's ultimately responsible for optimizing processes and ensuring that there's alignment between the processes and the strategic objectives. So in other words, you'll recognize this, the PIO generates and directly affects the culture. And it does that by creating this balance. And it's a balance between effectiveness, so for example, a lean-driven culture, so effectiveness and efficiency, which is around process standardization and optimization and automation, okay? So this is that balance point. The PIO, ultimately, it's going for that balance. Engaging teams, that sense of stewardship, eliminating waste, creating engagement and accountability, sustaining the operations of the organization. This is a true balancing act. And really successful PIOs or successful process improvement professionals who have that eye on the cultural aspect, man, this is where they sing, okay? So grab a screenshot of this one, keep this one handy. All right, so let's dive a little bit deeper into there. And well, you know what? Let me flip back there just in case you wanted to grab that screenshot and I moved too fast. All right, there we go. So got it? Excellent. Okay, let's jump on to the next one. So we want to now dive into deeper the other charter components for the PIO, what the charter components themselves are. So first of all, we need to have an enterprise understanding. What does that mean? So when there's an enterprise understanding, it means that we're really ensuring that the architecture exists for all the processes. All the processes are documented and they're understood. Now I'm going to carry this a step further in our next slide that will show you how to do these things. So this is kind of moving from that theory to practice and then moving into the mastery component. Okay, so first of all, you need to make sure that when you're looking from a PIO perspective, there's a strong understanding and that people understand all the processes are documented and they're understood by employees, by everyone in the organization. Also that we have workforce engagement. There we go. There's a component of culture as well. So right here, that there's mentoring and guidance to stakeholders and improvement teams. So this is around teaching others to fish, not fishing for them, right? If we use that analogy, this is the component of people own what they help to create. Okay, so the strongest and best PIOs and PI and culture improvement professionals have this orientation. It's an orientation around enabling others to be successful, transferring knowledge to others, being able to give them the capability to be successful. And that's what we want for your PIO. Now, they also have a strong component around project management. So from that standpoint, they're responsible for owning the portfolio of improvement projects and being able to maintain and publish a complete process listing. So they have that ownership around process ownership, process management within the organization, hence our BPM, right? All right, so it's a strong element. You want to find someone, you can see kind of the subtle balance in here. When you find somebody who is equally passionate and committed to and successful at workforce engagement and the people aspects, along with the process aspects and project management, man, you want to snap them up, get them into your organization, because that is a rare breed of professional. That's what we're going after creating, and your participation in this as well. All right, the next component here is around process improvement. So the fourth component for the charter is a statement around process improvement. And what you want to see in here is that the PIO is responsible for designing and implementing standardized or improved processes. So ensuring that that thread goes throughout. That's, of course, why this PI organization and PI professionals exist, or they're titled as such, right, is around the process improvement. And then lastly is the continuous assessment. So this piece often gets missed, right? Often in this space, what happens is that we forget that we need to also be focused on continuous assessment. And that's where we have implementing our critical performance measures and our performance systems. All right. So to do a dive into this real quick, tidy it up, put a bow on this for today, our ProMap tip of the week and demo, or even if you're working with any other tools, this is what you should be looking for. And ideally, it's all managed in one spot, which is what we've got in ProMap, of course. Now, from this standpoint, what we're looking at is, first one, ensuring proper business architecture. Yes. So you want to make sure you have full transparency in your solution set. The next element around mentoring and guiding, you want to make sure that the tool sets and the program designs are built around engagement. Managing the process improvements. That is all about governance. Again, a deep dive there. And then designing and implementing or standardizing the processes, communication, getting them in place, making sure people know what needs to be done, and inviting communication back. And then lastly, implementing the measures. That's accountability. So that's where the ProMap solution comes in. If you're already a ProMap client, awesome. If you want to dive deeper into that functionality with me, just give me a holler and let's dive into it so you're taking full advantage of what's available here, and then also teeing yourself up for what you may want to do in the world of automation as well. Okay, so let's just open it up real quick, see if we've got any quick questions that have come in. And it looks like it's pretty quiet on the question front at the moment. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at next week's, given our timing of everything. If you've got any questions in the meantime, please do just fire me a note. You know that I'm here. Give me a call. Next week, we're going to do the deep dive into the process improvement services. So that's the second component for your PIO. And here we're going to look at what those services are and also what some of the benefits are and also roadblocks to some of the traditional PI services. So we're going to get into the world of change management in this space. Okay, fascinating area, great area. I get super excited about it. You can tell I geek out on this, right? So from here, we're going to do some tips and tricks as well, so that so we can create that unstoppable engagement. All right, so let's just go ahead and wrap it up. Again, thank you for joining me. We're right at just a minute over here. And so I appreciate you sticking around with me through today. Love being on these Snap webinars together. Love that you're part of this next series, and looking forward to all of the feedback, all of the insights that you have as well. Please feel free to just shoot me a quick note and let me know what you're interested in. If you want to go deeper into anything that I talked about, again, all free and open. We are all about propagating excellence in leadership and sharing best practices. As you know, if you worked with us in the past, if we've had a chance to work together again, I'm so grateful for being on the journey together with you. And I look forward to connecting on our next session. Thanks so much. Have a fabulous day, everybody. Bye-bye.